Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak about this. And my presentation is called Situational Awareness Challenges Within the Scope of Responsive Cyber Defense. And we discussed if it's active cyber defense, responsive cyber defense, but I started thinking about if we should talk about active cyber defense or responsive cyber defense. And I believe the very first idea is, okay, if I say anything about responsive cyber defense, this should be valid about active cyber defense as well. But active cyber defense even contains more challenges, more problems than we are already facing in responsive cyber defense. And thus I decided to just talk about responsive cyber defense here because it's complicated enough. So you know the situation if you're working together with 5 computer scientists and you want to know what the definition of a specific expression is, you ask them and you end with at least 6 different definitions. And when starting to prepare this presentation, I wanted to know what do other people think about responsive cyber defense, how is it defined, and I started asking someone who knows. I started to ask Google. And I just typed responsive cyber defense and Google answered me, oh, there are some guys in Estonia and they know perfectly everything about responsive cyber defense. The first hits on Google were CyCon last year. They discuss active cyber defense, CCD-COE, and they pointed to the active cyber defense workshop we had last year. So everything was fine. Google believes that the definition of responsive cyber defense is here in Estonia. So perhaps Google is a little bit biased. I asked other people who should know. I asked Bing, and I typed responsive cyber defense as well. And I wonder, even Bing believed that the definition of responsive cyber defense is quite important and is done here at CCD-COE. And they point to the workshop day as well from last year's conference, last year's CyCon conference, and about a red teaming workshop we had last year, and there was another link pointing to that Austria as a first non-NATO nation joined CCD-COE. So CCD-COE seems to be really important in the area of responsive cyber defense. But I just looked to the West, perhaps I should look to the East as well, and I asked another search engine, and surprise, they believe that responsive cyber defense is related to CCD-COE as well. I found a link to last year's workshop and to the Austria joining the Cyber Defense Alliance as well. So that's only a little bit to the east. Perhaps I should take a deeper look, much more to the east. But okay, now I'm finished. I unfortunately can't speak Chinese, so I don't understand what's on this screenshot. Perhaps someone here can help me. I'm not really sure if the Chinese believe that the definition of responsive cyber defense can be found here as well. No? Okay. Then I took last year's conference proceedings, a nice little book, comparable to those we got this year. And I found out, and I even remembered, I didn't have to look in the book, that there was a specific chapter on cyber situational awareness. And the last year's proceedings contained 4 papers, and it started with a paper from the UK about dynamic cyber incident response. We had a paper about beyond technical data, a more comprehensive situational awareness. This was a paper from Germany. Then we had a paper from Finland about situational awareness in and from critical infrastructures. And we had a 4th paper in this session, and this was about operational data classes for establishing situational awarenesses in cyberspace. So this was a United States paper. And basically, this is the essence of last year's situational awareness in CyCon. So I reread the papers and tried to find out what was important about this paper, what was the state of the research last year. And I found, for example, this is the first paper here from the UK. They invented a dynamic cyber incident response model. And for us, it's quite interesting today that we have those 4 boxes here. And these 4 boxes here are the potential responses. And they suggest to have the responses to defend against the attack, to monitor the attack, to do active reconnaissance, and to counterattack or to strike. And that's a set of possible responses we can do. and this is mainly the output of their incident response model. Then I took a deeper look into the second paper from Germany, and I learned from this paper that it's not only important to look into the technical details inside our networks, because I say it's if you look at threat and vulnerability information, it's only a small technical cutout of a bigger situational picture, and this is really important. A lot of us, especially computer scientists, tend to look at the technology, tend to look at the basic monitoring data and so on, and do not really understand that it's much more than just the technology here. And they promoted in last year's presentation the use of intelligence information, which is definitely quite important. And then we had the third paper, and they created a common operational picture of critical infrastructure. And the goal of their paper was to provide support for decision-making on different management layers. And this is an important part, this is an important sentence as well, because you do not have something like situational awareness for everyone. You have lots of different people and lots of different layers, and they all need different kind of situational awareness, and that's what they addressed here in this paper last year as well. And last not least, we had the fourth paper from the United States, and they used 6 classes of information to achieve operational relevant situational awareness. And the 6 classes of information they had were the threat environment, they had the anomalous, the detection of anomalous activity, they looked at vulnerabilities, technical, they looked at the key terrain, they looked at operational readiness, and about ongoing operations. And put all this together gives you different operational data classes, but all these bits of information are really important to gain situational awareness in cyberspace. And so this is basically put all those together in a small diagram. This is a really simplified process for responsive cyber defense situational awareness. You have something like an input. An input can be both technical and non-technical. The technical part of the input is, for example, the information about or from critical infrastructure, data collection, and so on. We have the 6 data classes from the US paper. We have intelligent information, like discussed in the German paper. And we have, for example, public sources, which are quite important as well. It's not only intelligence, can be open source intelligence as well. And then we have, in the middle of this process, we have the processing, which is really important, and research challenge as well. We have collection of data, filtering of data. We have the challenge of that we have huge amounts of data. We have to cope with mass data and so on. We have to do data fusion. This is a really complex research issue as well, a challenge on its own, and I believe that we could have lots of presentations solely on this small processing issue here. And last but not least, we are talking about responsive or even active cyber defense situational awareness. This means we have to define and to analyze the potential responses we have here. And last but not least, we need some kind of output, otherwise no human being would be able to develop situational awareness. And this means we need to have visualization, which is easy to understand. And we need some kind of decision support, response support, in order to allow the operator looking at this display to do decisions and to properly do the next steps within the mission. And so what's important here, and here are the first challenges. The overall system has to be user-friendliness. And the second challenge is to define who the user is. We have different kind of users. We have normal end users. We have computer emergency response team members. We have commanding officers and so on. And all these are different kind of users, and they have they need different input from their situation awareness tools. And the second challenge is that it has to be administrator friendly as well. and the system has to be set up mission specifically, for example. And if the administrator setting up the systems has problems setting it up properly, then the situational awareness will be broken for all of the users as well. So this means user friendliness for lots of different kinds of users and administrator friendliness to be able to set it up properly, fast, without major mistakes and so on. And that's one of, this is already a huge bunch of challenges. So, situational awareness. I already told you that, especially if you ask computer scientists to look at situational awareness, they often reduce situational awareness to some technical details. And they often reduce it to monitoring of technical parameters, like is my server up and running, or do the other servers respond, are the services I need working, and so on. What about the bandwidth? Is there some kind of bottleneck in my network connection? Will the bandwidth be sufficient to enjoy my services, and so on? And as I already told you, the consideration of the additional parameters is needed as well. And this means we just do not have simply to visualize technical parameters, but we have to visualize all the other information, like intelligence information and so on as well. And this is definitely still a challenge, and lots of people, classic Unix administrators, for example, they are absolutely happy with log files, but in my point of view, a log file is no means of visualization at all. So perhaps they find quite fast and easily when they know what they have to look for, but it's almost impossible to find things which are hidden deep inside huge amounts of log file entries. And so if you go to industry and ask what do you offer, they offer, oh, we have got wonderful CM systems, and they are nice and they give you a lot of insight to what's really going to happen inside your networks. But if you talk to, for example, third personnel using CM systems and ask them, how do you like the system? And the typical answer I get, oh, it's really nice. And see, here I have the visualization, and here is a list of the last virus scanner alerts. And here you see the events from my intrusion detection system and so on. That's nice. And when I ask the question, do you now feel that you really know what's going on inside your network? Do you have situational awareness? And the answer is typically, no, not really. And then my next question is always, but what do you need? And unfortunately, the question is, I don't know. And this is a challenge for industry, otherwise they would make it better. And this is a challenge for the researchers like me as well, who are looking from the technical computer science point of view to this system. So all in all, the title of this presentation is Challenges. I put this into the huge box of challenges as well. So if you see it from the other side, then the questions I want to have answered, these are pretty easy questions. Unfortunately, the answers are not that easy. So I want to know what's my situation. And it's not about measured values. It's not about there were 5 connection establishment attempts to my web server or whatever. This does not really give me information about my situation. So I need an interpretation of the measured values. And other important question is what changed during the last minutes or hours or days? And the most important question is everything okay? And if not everything is okay, then the next important question is, what are my options? And this is about the response. And so again, there were different ways to view this overall situation. I've got a user, normal end user, perhaps a soldier working in a mission, or someone sitting in his office doing some, let's say, boring office work, but it's a user of our system and he needs to know what's going on inside the system as well. And then I've got specialized members of computer emergency response teams, for example. They have a completely different view to the systems. It's their job to work with the system and to ensure the security of the systems. and they're interested in every single bit. And then I've got a completely different group of users, for example, the commander, and he needs an overall view. He needs a rough information, but nevertheless precise information about what's going on inside the network and the physical world as well. They all need situational awareness. They all want to respond to the current situations, and they all need to know what will happen due to their response. And this is quite important as well. They all have different requirements, but they need all situational awareness, but unfortunately different kind of situational awareness. So the response is the next challenge we are facing. Part of situational awareness is, what are my potential responses? What can I do right now at this situation? I've noticed something, I have to do something, what can I do now? And what can I do now is only part of the answer. This is a real-time response. Sometimes it could be sufficient to do something later, some kind of asynchronous response. What can I do now? What can I do later is basically the set of responses I have. But I need someone, or I need a system which makes suggestions. So the consequence of using one of the responses is important to know about this as well. The impact evaluation. What will happen to my IT infrastructure? What will happen to my services? This is again the view from the computer scientist. But what will happen to the physical world around me? Because we are living in a cyber-physical world. And what will happen to my mission? These are questions the tech guys sometimes do not answer properly. So the consequences of the responses are, if I know my potential responses, I want to have the consequences of these responses. And there is a both set of potential consequences of the responses. A response could be shutting down my system or attacking the attacker. This is the easiest way on the one side, and the far end of the scale on the other side. So unfortunately, shutting down my system is like you fear that someone is attacking you at your home, and because someone's ringing the doorbell and you start burning down your home in order to protect yourself or whatever. So that's not good. It's a self-denial of service attack here. And attacking the attacker, then the usual answer is the well-known example of the fact that you are not attacking the computer of the attacker, but in fact you are attacking some computer in a hospital, which is important for the life of the people being in this hospital. So that's on both ends not the really reasonable response, but in between there should be some, at least one or two or a few more reasonable responses here. But as someone trying to find out which response to take, this is important to have sufficient information to do a proper choice here. So it's a cyber-physical world, and I have to know what the dependencies between my IT systems and the real worlds are. And I have to know what the influences on organizational processes are. And in addition, what are the consequences for my mission? If the organizational process is, for example, if you're hungry at home and yes, you want to eat something, and your organizational process is to go to your computer, go to the website of your favorite pizza place and order a pizza, then this is a nice organizational process which typically would work, but unfortunately your computer is not working any longer, so you need some kind of workaround. And if you don't have a workaround for this, for example, leaving your home, going to your pizza place, or perhaps even learn to cook, then it's a problem. And the challenge here is to find out what these the interrelations between the IT system and the real world are here. So what I want to have is something like this. I need a decision support, and the system tells me these are your options, A, B, and C. And here's again a usability challenge. Sometimes you don't have options. Then it's not really useful that there is a complex user interaction, and in fact, in the end, the system tells you, okay, you don't have an option, you're lost. So after presenting the options, I need an evaluation of the options, kind of impact assessment. Advantage of option A is, a disadvantage of option A is, and so on. Sometimes different options may have different advantages. For example, costs, some response could be extremely expensive in resources, but a very good response and a very fast response, for example. And others could be much less cost intensive, but a lot slower and so on. So you have to do the decisions based on different metrics. And last but not least, I want to have a recommendation, something like, based on available information, the system recommends response B, because, and consider the following possible consequences. And after this, when all this is working fine, Murphy knocks at the door, and anything that can go wrong will go wrong. What's going to happen? We have, again, all this is based on a lot of technical monitoring. The problem I see is that we never can be sure that the values we are measuring are really the real measures, the real values. Perhaps we are potentially blind. The attackers could be attacking our monitoring infrastructure. They could send us wrong information, they could send us old information, whatever. And the main problem is, can we trust the values we really see? Are these values up to date? And this is already a problem in physical world, situational awareness. I talked to companies setting up sensors on warships, and they told me that you cannot be sure that the data in the internal network of the ship is really up to date and so on. And we will see this when we are doing cyber defense situational awareness as well. And last but not least, we have to respond in a timely manner, and again, a huge challenge. On the one hand, we have a fast response, and we need this upon the detected attack. And on the other hand, we learned from the presentation from Microsoft today that it's around 243 days, if I remember the number correctly, until it's a median value until the attack is detected. So it's not timely anymore if you wait 3/4 of a year. So anything that can go wrong will go wrong. The approach to perfectly defend our own IT infrastructure has failed, and our monitoring capabilities will be attacked, and they will fail as well. And we can't be sure about the confidentiality and integrity of our data anymore, and we have to be prepared. And this is, as we already have seen in the first presentation, resilience. And the resilience is a challenge for us as well. So we urgently need it. That's, at least in my point of view, it's obvious. And we need some kind of emergency operation in our IT infrastructure, tailored to the mission's need. And that's important to the mission's need. If we do not have access to important effectors for the mission, then we need some manual access. Otherwise, the mission could fail. If we do not have confidentiality protected communication anymore, perhaps that's not that of a huge problem. Perhaps we can live with clear voice. Could be sufficient. And we have, if we do not have access to some kind of logistics database, then perhaps this doesn't matter at all during this one-day mission, and we can deal with the situation. What we need is something like one flat tire for our mission. And short summary, anything that can go wrong will go wrong, and simply let's be prepared. Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? Well, you addressed the timely manner, and as we see when we live in a scenario where we have to see the APT and the automized attacks coming in from botnets nowadays, for example, then the human in the loop actually slows down all this process. So what do you think in future situational awareness? Will we see automated systems that will automatically react in those scenarios, maybe even going into the area of artificial intelligence, that we see we will have intelligent systems recognizing those things and reacting?
I know that a computer is typically much faster than a human being, but nevertheless, I prefer to have a semi-automatic response. I prefer to have a human in the loop, which is at least able to understand that perhaps the automatic responses the system would make the situation worse and not better. And this human should be able to interrupt automatic processes in order to perhaps in the end save the system.
Keeps the human in the loop.
Yeah.
Mission control model. Very good.
Okay.
Okay. Then thank you. I guess we will continue this discussion maybe tomorrow in our artificial intelligence session.